Hello, my name is Alan, and this is my wife Kathy, and we are here for another episode of Okay, Let's Talk About It. And Kathy, before you give us the question that's been submitted, let me say to our listeners, if there is a topic or a question or an issue that you would like for us to address, we would love to do that. There's probably no topic, no issue that we won't consider. This is one of these opportunities that we have to talk about things in the Christian life that we have to deal with that we can't always address or deal with on a Sunday morning, for example. And so please, you can direct message, you can submit them via email through the church or to the website, but we'll certainly consider these questions. So, Kathy, what is the question or the topic for today?
Okay, I think this is a really good one. Should I monitor my child's music, media, social media?
Should I monitor my child's music and then media, all of the above? I think it's also appropriate, whether or not we talk about it in this particular episode. I know that just within the last 2 days, Taylor Swift has released I think a new EP or something, and I think like lots of the songs have a very explicit lyrics, and I haven't listened to them, I haven't seen it, but I know that evidently there's some anti-God, anti-Christian type things in that. I've not. We may address T Swift in another episode, maybe. We'll talk about it. I'm old T Swift. I'm Tim McGraw. T Swift. The new T Swift, not a big fan of, but I do know that what we're listening to today and what our kids are listening to, and then what they're being exposed to. We can talk about social media as well as just media, television, right? Being bombarded, devices. I'll tell a quick story. This is a few years ago, but I remember in student ministry, and I don't remember specifically if it was a camp or a D-Now type thing. But the description was, hey, kids, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to explore that. And it was just like all of these incredible things. And the kids were just hyped up, pumped up. I mean, excited about these things they were going to do until the thing said no phones. I think it said either no phones or here's the times in which they won't have access to their phones. And it did remind her if it was whitewater rafting and we're going to do this and we're going to do, climb this mountain. And it was the fact they weren't going to have phones. Right. They lost their minds. I'll never forget that. And then, here's the other thing that was somewhat surprising is some of the parents were angry about that.
That's right.
And so I know that this is an issue of kids and their devices and their phones, this whole media. So the question I'd like us to address is wisdom regarding our kids, their devices, media, including music. Okay? So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. All right. Number one, do not be naive about social media and your child or your teen.
Right. I think that you and I would agree, first and foremost, don't be naive because the data is out there. The data is out there. The statistics are out there. The dopamine hits. It can be addictive, what they're being exposed to. If you as a parent, if you're not aware of the data, if you're not aware of the statistics, you need to do some research, but studies are out there, and it talks about how it's a hit every time, whether it's a TikTok or an Instagram or they get a like or whatever it may be, it's a hit.
Right.
And the devices themselves. And so what it does to the mind, what it does with regard to addictive behavior, and then of course, what they're being exposed to. So, here's also what's interesting to me: this younger generation, the Gen Zers, and even beyond now, they are more connected than any other generation, and yet they relate consistently that they are the loneliest.
Right.
the most connected, yet the loneliest. And we're seeing that in our counseling ministry, college, student, preteen, even children, what the effect these things are. So again, don't be naive as a parent. Get the data, get the information. If you don't have it, research it, be aware of it.
And I think be aware of where your child's phone is. Your child does not need to have a phone in their bedroom at night. They need to be sleeping.
Right.
Nothing productive happens at 2 a.m.
on social
on
media,
social
right?
media,
yeah,
TV,
or some group chat, right?
Nothing.
There's nothing good is going to take place.
Right. So don't assume that they're gonna, if they take it to the room, that they're gonna do the right thing. It's your responsibility.
Yeah.
To guard that.
Again, statistically, night use is the breeding ground for porn addiction.
That's exactly
right. And so we can't just shrug off what we don't know.
Right.
And so be informed, be aware, don't be naive. So we would say that first and foremost.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Let me talk about this just briefly. I just would say, from a Christian perspective, a Christian parent, be more concerned about your teenager's holiness than your teenager's acceptance. And what I mean by that is that, we're all about our kids standing out, in ways that the world finds attractive, like sports and academics and maybe the arts. But we're also, at the same time, we're hesitant about our kids standing out in the ways of Christ. And what I mean by that is that if they stand out in the ways of Christ, they're going to face some persecution, right? Now, not in the ways that Christians in Muslim countries, for example, or communist countries, the kind of persecution they're faced. But the truth is that teenagers today, if they choose to live for Christ, they're gonna take some heat from their peers,
Right.
And we don't want that. And so. So again, my word of counsel is, be more concerned about your kids' holiness than you are with them being accepted by their peers. So sometimes we have parents that are giving their kids phones, in my opinion, way too early.
Yes.
And the reason they do that, it's not the concern for their kids' holiness, it's because all of their friends have
Right,
phones.
right.
So again, just a word is that be concerned about your child and their relationship with Christ, right?
And I think when they have these smartphones or the laptops or the devices that connect them, you're exposing them to this knowledge that they're not ready for.
They're not equipped for.
No, and Christians are supposed to be infants in evil, but grown up in our thinking. But culturally, we have that backwards. I see too many teenagers that have too much knowledge of evil, but they don't have the ability to be critical thinkers. I had thinking of a student last year that came in, middle schooler.
I know the story you're going to tell.
And she was so excited, and I was like, "How are you? What's going on?" She said, "I have a lover."
I have a lover.
And
She's like 12 years old.
I was like, "Excuse me?" I was trying to regain my composure.
Right.
I said, as we talked, I said, "You mean boyfriend?" "Yes, but on social media, some of these, they now call it lover."
A lover.
And so we had
Yeah.
a conversation about some of this, but
Yeah.
that ability to be critical thinkers and think, no, this is too far, this is right, this is not. They haven't developed that yet.
Yeah, I think it's just pausing as a parent and realizing in that device, they have the whole world that they can see and
All
be
of it.
exposed to. Right, all of it. So that is an incredible amount of knowledge. And we generally say knowledge is a great thing, but they're not mature enough. They're not ready yet to be able to filter and think through. And
Right.
so we just have to be very, very, very careful. I would say next, and you and I talk about this with regard to, and we will, about music. We talk about this in a lot of things as a parent, is with regard to my device, regard to my own use of media, whether that's television, whatever it may be, internet. what kind of role model am I? What example am I setting, right? So again, with regard to devices, what does my behavior teach about my priorities? And we'll talk about it probably more in a few minutes in details, but let's think about my device. If my child sees me at every moment or every break that I have, grabbing my phone, searching social media, then again, that's the priority that I'm setting. That with any spare moment, mom, dad is on the device. Let's talk about even television, and we'll talk about probably timing and those types of things. But if my child sees that my default is to binge on some kind of program, again, what kind of model? Now, am I saying checking your phone, watching a movie, binging on some television program is not a sin? But the question is, as a parent, what am I modeling, right? What am I modeling with regard to these things?
That's good. So let's go into monitoring music.
Okay, music. Let's talk about it.
So when a teen says that their music is their personal choice, they're right.
Yeah.
But, it's a reflection of your taste, your moods, the influence of your peers in a lot of times, and sometimes generational, right? So, but the Apostle Paul writes, all things are permitted, but not all things are of benefit. All things are permitted, but not all things build people up.
Yeah.
So I think, we can't focus on controlling our teens' choices, but we need to encourage them to align their music choices with their beliefs, with their faith.
Right. What I hear you saying is a couple of things. I hear you saying that we cannot say to the child, in other words, you can't control their music. It would be like this. It would be us being told you can or cannot listen to certain things, especially because there's such a emotional connection with music, was what I hear you saying.
Right.
So we may not necessarily can say you can't do this or you can't do that. It may be beyond that control. What we want to try to do, and I think the goal here, is to influence, to influence what the child is listening to and the choices that they're making. Now, again, I think you said that, not just so much controlling, because we're limited with that, right? Because they're out of our boundaries. 8, 10, 12 hours a day. They're going to listen to what they're going to listen to, but maybe we can influence and maybe we can encourage certain things. Let's talk about this, because I know that some parents just say, hey, I remember when I was a kid, I listened to whatever I listened to and I turned out fine. Right. Okay. That may be number one. They may be up for
debate,
debate. But number two, I would just say, let's just pause for a moment and let's agree in the power of music. Music is extremely powerful. Think about movies themselves. We're watching these movies and how they implement music into that movie, and it's moving. It brings about certain emotions. There's an incredible amount of power in music. I know this about you. There would be a song that we could play that's going to trigger some memories in the past that may bring a great amount of pleasure or joy. There may be a song that we would play that triggers some pain. So music is extremely powerful. And so I just would say, as we understand and agree how powerful it is, we need to try to influence our children regarding what they're listening to, right? Okay?
Right. I think we have to understand that the words are subliminal. The words matter. And sometimes people say, well, I'm just listening to the beat or whatever. No, that's dangerous. The words have an effect on the mind, whether the person realizes what is happening or not. And I think of another student a couple of years ago. It was recital season. We were picking songs, and she brought a song and said, I want to do this for the recital. And I listened to it, and I was like, I don't know about this one. And I said, are you sure? Have you listened to this song? Oh, we listen to it all the time while we're in the car riding around. And I'm like, really? Okay. I said, I tell you what, let me reach out to your mom and have a conversation with her, and then we'll go from there. So I messaged the mom and said, so-and-so wants to do this for the recital. I really would like for you to listen to this song and get your approval before I say okay. I wasn't going to say okay regardless, but I wanted the mom to take them to and the mom was appalled when she went back and listened to it and was like, we've been listening to this in the car, but she's been on the phone or she's been doing her thing, not paying attention to the lyrics that they're listening in the car.
Yeah.
And I mean, the words matter.
Yeah, the words matter, and they may say that is a default expression. Hey, I listen to the music, not the words. What we need to understand is they are receiving the words.
Right.
The words are going into their mind. You know, whether or not they may acknowledge it or recognize it, the words are there. And also think about it, it's repetitive, right? It's repetition. And so when someone hears a subliminal, you know, message again and again and again, it will affect them. It will affect them. So what if there are some lyrics that are absolutely contrary to what we believe as followers of Christ, right? When the Word of God tells us, hey, set your minds on things above, right? Take every thought captive, then we need to take that seriously. And I would say those principles are the principles that we need to really have these conversations with our children, right? Hey, son, hey, daughter, I know you like so-and-so, and I know you like that music, and I know you like that beat, but let's talk about these lyrics. Hey, look, whether or not you understand or say that you're not paying attention to the words, they're entering into your mind. And as Christ followers, we're to take every thought captive.
That's right.
In fact, you know, we're kind of held accountable for those things that we allow to remain in our minds and then maybe come into our hearts. So there are some ways that we can influence our child's music selections.
So there's two issues. Let's address these. So first, we have to ensure that what we listen to aligns with what we're telling our child to listen to. Right. So, you know, we're more effective when we're following the same system of belief that we're trying to instill in our kids. So I
think about what you just said in your example, that this mom and the child, evidently on a regular basis, they're listening to this particular song in the car. So, but the mom really didn't take notice. So I think your advice is, let's be careful what we're listening to, as we're modeling to our kids.
Right, and that created conversation between her and her daughter about, okay, this is, because some songs are dangerous.
Some songs are dangerous. The lyrics, what they're saying, what they're promoting are just absolutely dangerous. And again, I think that what we're seeing today, and I don't know if anyone would deny this, especially regarding secular music, and not all secular music is wrong. I mean, shoot, you and I listen to, you know, secular music from time to time, the classics, the oldies but goodies. But there are today. Again, we alluded to T Swift earlier. Again, I don't have enough information to fully address it, but here's what we do know. We do know that if there's some things that can be controversial, right? You know, for Hollywood or for media, there's no such thing as bad press. So they're going to be more explicit. They're going to push the envelope more. Why? Because it gets more attention. And so, but we have to say to ourselves, hey, there's some things that are being sung, some lyrics that are just dangerous. They're just dangerous, and they may be just absolutely contradictory to what you and I believe as believers.
And I think we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention.
Let's talk about some practical advice regarding just devices in general, okay? How about this? Matthew chapter 6, verse 22. The eye is a light for the body. If your eyes are good, then your whole body will be full of light. So here's what the scripture basically teaches. What enters your eyes, right? What you behold is what you become, right? What you see is what you will become, you know? So if your eyes are good or what you're receiving is good, then your whole body will be full of light. So with that being said, is that we need to monitor. You know, the scripture even talks about making a covenant with your eyes. So thinking of our own devices and our kids with their devices, let's make a covenant with our eyes, and let's consider what comes in is what we become. What you behold is what you become. And so, with that being said, let's talk about some of the most dangerous things that we can do with our children regarding devices.
I think first off, giving them a device at too young of an age.
Yeah.
I have several elementary students that have a phone, and there's not a necessity. It's for entertainment.
Yeah.
It's to keep them occupied, and I think that's very dangerous. But even more dangerous is to give them a device without any kind of restrictions.
Any restrictions.
On it. Because don't pretend like your kids are angels. They're
they're curious.
They're curious, but that normal curiosity can turn into a lifetime of bondage. Very dangerous.
Couple of quick things come to mind before we move forward. I love the fact that there are options today regarding phones. If we say, look, I need to give my young child a phone because at certain times of the day I need to be able to get a hold of them or they need to call me. Well, guess what? They actually have like old school flip phones. They actually have devices now that's all they do is maybe shoot a text and make a phone call.
Right.
So, hey, use that. I know some adults that are using those more as to break the addiction of grabbing my phone and surfing the web all the time. So there are options regarding devices when it comes to those kinds of things. And then again, a word of warning when you said earlier, kids are curious. If they have access, and we know these kids nowadays, I mean, I remember, I think one of the first iPhones that we ever purchased when the boys were at home, I think Connor had to show us how to use it, how to program it or whatever he had to do. I was like, and he was like very young. And so they're curious, they're smart, they know those things. Here's what we need to know. The entertainment industry is looking for addicts, right? We're seeing now with our older teens, sport betting, gambling, they're looking for addicts. The music industry, looking for addicts. Porn industry, looking for addicts. And so understand that's what we're battling.
Right, and I think with this freedom on their phones, TikTok and some of these little Snapchats and all that, they're one decision away, one post away from something that's going to stick with them for the rest of their life. Even if they try to delete it and forget about it, it is there.
It's there. Yeah, that's good. Let's talk very briefly about some very practical guidelines. All right, I think you alluded to this maybe earlier, maybe said it earlier. You and I have said from the very beginning, I just don't think it's good advice for kids to have a television in their room, right? Or even maybe I don't know if they should have a computer in their room.
No, I don't know.
Not today. And so I think it needs to be all kept out into an area where all can see. I think if they're going to need to use their laptop and they need to do homework, I think it's in the family room or at the kitchen table or wherever. I think that there's just too great a temptation, right? Think about for an adult, there's certain situations that none of us are strong enough to handle, let alone a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old boy or a girl. And so let's not present those opportunities for them. So I just think practically, not a television or a computer in your child's bedroom.
Absolutely.
Let me mention one other, then you address a couple. This has been around a long time. I remember when it first came out, and we recommended, and I think last week I recommended someone. There's something called Covenant Eyes that can be put on a computer, can be put on a smart device, and it basically helps you monitor those devices, what they're seeing, what their sites they're going to, because right now these kids are so smart. You may grab your kid's phone. Listen, there's apps that hide things.
Hide apps.
You're not smart enough to detect what your kid's going to. So you need some people that are smarter than you. And Covenant Eyes is one of those things that you can put on devices. Maybe everyone in the family that helps monitor that and will send accountability reports. Okay.
That's good. Okay. Evaluate all movies, television watching, what's going into your mind,
Yeah.
what your eyes are seeing, what's going
Yeah.
into your mind. I think that's important.
Something you and I do even now is before we watch a movie on Amazon Prime or Netflix is that we'll Google reviews.
Right, right.
You know, and there's a couple of sites that are out there that gets from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
Now, again, let's say we're not trying to be legalistic here, right? But let's examine it before we just, because everybody else watched it and somebody else
Right.
recommended it to it. Let's do a little
Pay
evaluation first.
attention.
Right.
And I think very important is keep the conversation flowing between generations. And that's conversation. That's not telling, talking at. Listen back and forth. Have communication.
Yeah, I think like a movie. I remember you and I a couple times with the boys at different times. We stopped a movie, and okay, hey, what are y'all doing? We're not going to watch this. Let's talk about why we're not going to watch this, right? So the goal I think in parenting is keep the conversation going. There ought not be anything that you can't talk about. And if there is ongoing dialogue, then you can talk about certain things, right? All right, very quickly, a couple of things. I think a couple of tests. One, the control test. I not only recommend this for our kids, but even as an adult. I ask myself on a regular basis, I'm sure most everyone, especially if you have an iPhone, every week we get a report how much you use your phone this week. It can be convicting.
Sure, absolutely.
It can be
Yeah.
convicting. So there's the control test. Is this controlling me? Is this device? Is that television? Is that social media? Is that whatever it may be? Is it controlling me? Ask yourself realistically, and even for your kid, is it controlling my child? And then the other is the clock test. How much time am I giving? Hey, you and I will find ourselves, our default may be after a long, hard day, we're just going to watch the next episode of the Netflix thing. And then you and I sometimes say, you know what, let's go sit on the back porch. Let's go for a walk. Let's go. That's you and I. If you have children at home, let's go hiking. Let's go fishing. Let's not default on those devices or the television or the Netflix or the whatever. So let's be sure that there's a clock test that how am I spending my time, right? The scripture says redeem the time. And we are going to ultimately give an account of the time. So I hope this is an encouragement to parents regarding their children at home and even maybe their wisdom for themselves about music, what we're taking in, social media, television, devices, those kinds of things. I do know that families are struggling. It is a control issue. It's a lordship issue. It's a battle in a lot of people's homes. I know parents who've tried to restrict or take away and even say, look, there's certain times that we're not going to use our devices. When we get home, we're going to plug our phones in, mom and dad included, and once an hour we can check them, but we're going to have family time. And that's a battle, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
So let's pray for families and for individuals that maybe this is a battle for them, that they would have opportunity to have spiritual, gospel-centered conversations with their children. All right?